This is the second module of the course Applied Linguistics Language Teaching in the program of Applied Linguistics under EPG Pathshala of the UGC. This is the second module, and as I said earlier in the first module, there are about 32, I think, modules, total modules in this course on Applied Linguistics. In the case of some modules, a few modules, Dr. Rajesh Kumar of IIT Madras and Dr. Vandana Puri, who is at the University of Illinois in the United States, they have also helped me with some units, some modules. But most of the remaining modules have been written by myself. The second module, the first module was concerned with the nature of language and what linguistics is. That was what the first module was. The second module, as you know, is called the structure of language. We did hint about that a little bit in the first module when we talked about the hierarchical structure of language. But language is far more complex, and it is organized at very high levels of complexity at each level, at the level of sounds, at the level of words, at the level of sentences, and at the level of discourse. Right? Discourse means what will come after what. Okay. In fact, as John Keats said, that language comes to us. He said this about poetry, but this can be said about language on the whole, that language comes to us as naturally as leaves to a tree. I think this is the most beautiful way of telling us what language is all about. It comes to us as naturally as we learn to walk or as we learn to see. It comes to us very, very naturally. Not only that, a child of 3 years or 4-year-old can be called a linguistic adult. In what sense? He or she is a linguistic adult because she can understand a story, very complex story that you tell her. And next morning, she can wake up and she can tell you the same story back, not in your words, but in her own words. That tells you that she is a linguistic adult. Secondly, a child of 4 or 5 years, whom we have called a linguistic adult, can produce infinite number of sentences, new sentences every day, and she can comprehend new sentences every day. Now, this capacity is really a unique capacity. This cannot be acquired through a process of imitation, repetition, practice, and giving a chocolate. You don't really think about it. You don't really learn languages because you tell your child pen, right? Or you don't tell your child table, and she say Papa. You say table. She say Tata. Say table, and she say table. No, that's not how children learn language. You give her a chocolate and force her to say something like splash. She will say splash. She will never be able to say splash. But a day will come within those 4 years that she will begin to say a word like splash. And you would say, how can she say splash? That is because, and she'll be able to put sentences together, and put a story together. How? Because she has this infinite capacity, this basic innate faculty, which when triggered by the environment, learns the language of that environment. And if there are 3 languages in that environment, she picks up all the 3 languages. This is the capacity, this is the great capacity which Chomsky formulated as Plato's problem. What is Plato's problem? And he in fact contrasts Plato's problem very interestingly with Orwell's problem. Plato's problem is, how come, given so little, a child learns so much? Right? the input to the child is very small and that is fragmented. How do you make a child learn language? You say, hello, 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 hello. No, that's not how a child speaks. Because a child is not imitating you. Child is not practicing. Child is just picking up hints from the environment, matching it with the universal, with the rules and principles and parameters of the universal grammar, and then she acquires that language. So Plato's problem is, which is what the linguists are always trying to address. The problem is, how come, given so little, you acquire so much? On the other hand, Orwell's problem is exactly the opposite. That given so much, not just as children, but all our lives, you spend a whole lifetime and you know everything about onions, for example. You know how they are grown, you know how much onions are grown, you know how they are sold, you know what prices they are sold, but still, in spite of all the knowledge about onions across the world, you cannot tell what price will be the onions tomorrow. It might be 50 or it might be 150, right? I mean, governments have fallen because of the price of onions because nobody could predict that. We know so much and we can acquire so little. So Orwell's problem is exactly the opposite of Plato's problem, that how come we know we are given so little but we learn so much. So that is the problem that Chomsky formulated as Plato's problem. In this module, we are going to concentrate on the structure of language in terms of sounds and in terms of words and in terms of sentences. You must have learned a lot about this in other courses on general linguistics and courses in phonology and courses in syntax, morphology. So phonology is the science of language at the level of sounds. Morphology is the science of language at the level of words. Syntax is the science of sentences. And semantics is the science of meaning. Pragmatics is how do you use language in your day-to-day world. So these are different branches of what we call formal linguistics, linguistics proper, as it were, or other aspects of, it's not that other aspects are improper, but this is the core of the scientific aspects of language. So I'm going to talk about the phonological aspects, that means sounds, morphological aspects, that means the words and their organization, and I'm going to talk about sentences, that means the syntactic aspects of language, that they are all rule governed. So let us take the level of sounds first. We are going to talk how language is organized and structured. Okay, basically we are saying that language is structured at all these levels and is rule governed. So let's see at the level of sounds. At the level of sounds, I think it's very important for you to begin with to understand the difference between a consonantal sound and a vocalic sound. So we need to understand the basic distinction between a consonantal sound and a vocalic sound. All languages work with a finite set of sounds, finite set of consonantal sounds. And remember, I am not saying consonants. I am saying consonantal sounds. I am not saying vowels. I am saying vocalic or vowel-like sounds. So the vowels in English language are not A, E, I, O, U. That is patently wrong. You see, there are maybe 21 or 23 vowel sounds in the English language, as will become clear to you slowly and must have become clear to you in other courses on phonology. The basic difference, generally a language would have consonantal sounds between say 25 to 34 generally. Some languages can have 45, 50, but that's it. You can't have hundreds of consonantal sounds. And you can have 5 or 6 vowel sounds or maybe 14, 15, but that's it. And this is a very small set. And imagine that millions and millions of words, old and new, are made with just this small set of sounds and arranged never in a random way, but always arranged in an ordered, rule-governed way. That is why we say that human language is structured at the level of sounds. Now, if you look at this, okay, let me first explain the difference between the consonantal sound, not the alphabet, consonantal sound and the consonant and the vocalic sound. People tell you that you need the help of vowel sounds to produce consonants or consonants as this, consonant that. I'll tell you a very simple way. A sound which you can produce for a long time is a vocalic sound. That's all. A consonantal sound is a sound that you cannot produce for a long time. So try to say pa for a long time. Say pa, you end up saying On the other hand, if you say e, you can say e. You can say it as long as your breath lasts. You don't have to stop. So it can be a long time. So vowel sounds can be produced for a long time, and consonantal sounds cannot be produced for a long time, or they will be produced with the help of a vowel, and then the vowel can be produced for a long time, vowel sound. Now, as you can look at the PPT which is in front of you, the slide that is in front of you, you will see that there is no relationship between the alphabet of a language and the sounds of a language. This becomes very clear from this slide which is in front of you. Look at the three words at the top: ant, America, and Argentina. The first word is ant. The sound of A is A, as in cat, mat, sat. But the second sound, which is America, the sound of A is not A. You don't say America, you say America, 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 The sound of the letter A is okay, not A. And in the third word, which is Argentina, the sound of A is ah. Okay. Look at the second, for example. Take the alphabet E. Take the alphabet E of the English language, and look at the following words. Look at the words which is in the slide: egg, make, mother, father, because, different. Now, if you look at egg, the sound is A. Egg, egg. What is the sound in make? What is the sound of E in make? You can see that the sound of E is 0. There is no sound of E, right? And if you look at mother and father, the sound of E is A. The sound of E is A. So A, 0, A already. Okay, and go further. Because the sound of E, the letter E is E, because. And what about the second E? Second E is 0. There is no sound of that. So the word final E in English language, the letter E is not pronounced. Maybe it was pronounced at some point in the history of languages, but as we said, in the history of English language, as we said, languages keep changing all the time, so it must have been dropped on the way. And the last one, different, again has two E's. The first one is A. The second one in British English is also A. So you say different, approximately. I'm not a speaker of British English, but I am a speaker of Indian English, and I would say different. So I say A there. Nothing wrong with that. That is how many of my friends speak, educated people speak the word. That's perfectly all right. That's the system. So E can be A, E, or 0. These are just from a finite set of lists, and it can have various others. If you look at a newspaper and make a list of the words with E, you will see that E can have so many sounds. So alphabet and sounds have no relationship. Look at the word psychology. Psychology, how many consonantal sounds at the beginning? How many? You will say P, S, Y, C, H, 5. But actually, my friends, there is only one, psychology. then I. After sir, your mouth is wide open. Sir, sai, sai. Only one consonantal sound, not 5. So there is no, there is a relationship, but it is not 100% one-to-one relationship. That's what I want you to understand. Look at the last part of the slide, the bottom one, and you will see 2 words, cuff and island. Cuff. Cuff, it should be written, I have written it in Devanagari and I have also written it Roman. It should be written as K-A-F. Imagine, K-A-F is being written as C-O-U-G-H. Right? And what could be stranger than this? But there are 2 amazing things about this. And look at the second word, island. What happened to the S there or the sir there? It becomes I. But the fact is that again it shows that the relationship is not between the alphabet and the sound is not a one-to-one relationship. Take a Hindi word like Kamal, right? Kamal. Kamal will be written how? K-A-M-A-L. Okay, you can see it on the slide. That's how Kamal is written. So, Ka has a, Ma has a, but La goes to 0. The of La goes to 0. The La of O is there in Lag, for example, in Lagna or Lagam, their is there. Otherwise, if it is the rule of Hindi language is that the word final goes to 0. Finished. That's the rule. And the surprising thing in Plato's problem is that children pick up this rule on their own. Do you think you sit down, a mother sits down or a nurse sits down and tell the child, look, the word final, the word final, don't pronounce it in Hindi. No mother, in fact, she doesn't know it consciously, so she can't teach it. Children pick up these rules on their own. Now, let us look at the second slide that is in front of you again, where we want to understand something about the nature of consonantal sounds. I have described on this chart, in this slide, the nature of what are called stop sounds or plosive sounds. Maybe you already know about them, but I thought it might be worthwhile to give you a brief introduction about this kind of sounds and how they are organized in a systematic way. And then we will see how consonantal sounds and vocalic sounds are put together in a rule-governed way. Okay, that's what we are going to see. So look at this slide that's in front of you. You will find this is a description of the Hindi consonantal sounds, Hindi consonantal stop sounds. What are stop sounds or plosive sounds? Plosive sounds are those sounds which produce a plosion, which explode. Like you can do p, there is a kind of plosion. There is an explosion there. So all the sounds, they have a complete closure. Stops are produced with a complete closure. Only then they are produced. Those sounds are called plosives. So I have arranged them in terms, they need only 2 parameters. There are 4 sounds, 4 in the k, k, g, g, right? As you see on the slide in front of you, these are organized in terms of kavarg, chavarg, tavarg, tavarg and pavarg. And in each series, you have 4 sounds. The first set is at the velum, back of your mouth. The second one is palatal, at the palate. And the ta, tha, da, dha, na is the retroflex series, which is produced with the, your tongue curled back. You curl back your tongue and put it here. That's how ta, tha, da, dha, ta, tha, da, dha. That's the retroflex series. And dental is at the teeth. The, th, right? You raise your tongue, put behind your teeth. The, th, the, dha, 4 sounds. And bilabial is very easy to see. Pa, 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 ba, bha. Okay. Now the interesting thing is you see 2 features at the top of the slide: aspiration and voicing. Voicing, aspiration is you take a candle and you say pa, the flame will not move. But if you say pa, the flame will move. So this extra puff of air is called aspiration. And voicing is a phenomena which happens at the vocal cords. Vocal cords are here, sitting on top of your windpipe. Just as you have two lips here, you have two lips here on top of your windpipe. You may ask, why are they there? Eyes are there to see. Why are they there? They are there because when you eat food, you close them tight. That's why your mother tells you, don't start speaking when you are eating. Don't talk when you are eating. Why? Because a particle of food may get into your windpipe. And that is when you do and sometimes you have to hit yourself at the back to throw the food out. That's why you have vocal cords. Now, voicing is the phenomena that is associated with the vocal cords here. When they vibrate like this, then that phenomena is called voicing. When they are like this, spread like this, then they are called voiceless. So this is voicing, this is voiceless. In the phonetics phonology paper, this will be discussed in much greater detail, but I am just sort of simplifying it for you. So the point I am trying to make is that all these sort of 4 into 5, 20 sounds, 20 consonantal sounds which are plosives in Hindi can be distinguished in terms of 2 parameters, aspiration and voicing. So k is minus aspirate minus voiced, whereas k is plus aspirate but minus voiced, whereas g is plus voiced minus aspirate, and ghar wala g is plus aspirate plus voice. So these 2 features distinguish all these consonants, and you see how the sound system of Hindi or any other language is so well organized, is so well structured. In the next slide, I'll show you how we can look at the vocalic sounds, that means the vowel sounds. Now the vowel sounds, as you see in front of you on the slide, are seen generally in terms of what we call cardinal vowels. So you will see on the slide that vowels can be either front or they can be back, like this. You see, just remember that the tongue can move like this and it can also move like this. So the horizontal movement of the tongue and the vertical movement of the tongue. So when I say E, it's a front vowel. When I say oo, it's a back vowel, the tongue goes back. But when I say ah, it's an open vowel because the mouth is open and the tongue is low. Okay. So understand this distinction between front and back and between high and low. E is high and ah. You see, I can't say more than that. Tongue as front as possible, mouth as open as possible. And now see what I do. Right? You take the tongue as back as possible and mouth open and your lips rounded. When I say E, my lips are spread. So these are the fundamental body parts that are involved, critically involved in the production of vocalic sounds. Horizontal and vertical movement of the tongue, that means front and back, high and low. And the lips, they can be spread or they can be rounded like this, E or oo, right? So that's all. So if you look at the cardinal vowel diagram in front of you, you will see that we distinguish 8 vowel sounds, which you must have seen in the course in phonetics far more critically, but I can't do it so well. But I know they are something like E, right? These are the 8 cardinal vowel sounds. And then there is in the center, you see in the center of the diagram, there is which is the neutral position in the mouth, which is called a schwa vowel sound. Okay, and it's sort of written like this, as you can see in the slide. So all the vowel sounds are measured in terms of this. For example, the Hindi E in is, or Hindi E as in eek, or the difference between let's say kisi. The first E is small and the last E is long, is close to cardinal vowel 1. C1, it's called C1. C1 to C8. These are the eight vowel sound, and all the vowels can be seen. This is like a scale on which you can measure, you can plot the vowel sound of any language that you know. So this is the second slide that we have. Now let us see how language is organized at the level of sounds. As I said before, you cannot put whichever sound you like together the way you like. Consider the sound p. This is the next slide on your screen. You can see that in this slide at the top, what kind of sounds can come after p in Hindi? Just think about it. Don't say palwal, because when you say palwal, then after p there is first an a, right? It's not that you are saying pl. Don't say something like matlab or let's say patla. You can't say that, because between p and th there is an a. So ka can't come. You can't have a word like, as you see on your slide, when you have an asterisk mark on the top, that means ungrammatical, that it's not allowed. That's what it means. That star on the top means it's not allowed. So something like kav can't be a word of Hindi. It's not allowed, right? Something like pagal is again not allowed. Something like, let us say, patav. Patava is allowed, but patav is not allowed, and so on. You can think that no sound can come after p except ya, ra, la, va. This is the first rule of Hindi language, of organizing phonology, that only you can say pyar or you can say pranam. So ra can come, ya can come, but not any consonant. Consider the next rule that we are going to talk about in some detail. And the next rule of organizing sounds and vowel sounds together, which constitute syllables. Remember that we cannot produce anything less than a syllable, because I can't say because I want to say ka. So I have to say ka is not a consonant. Ka is a syllable because it has ka and it has a. Okay. So look at the rules C1, C2, C3, V. V stands for a vocalic sound and C stands for a consonantal sound. Think about words that will have 4 consonantal sounds or 5 consonantal sounds before you hear a vowel sound. Probably not possible. That is not possible. You can't have, some languages may have 4, some may have 5, but no, not more than that. English and Hindi and all the Indian languages put together, and there are about 2,000 maybe, certainly 1,652 counted by the government of India. None of these languages allows more than 3 consonantal sounds at the beginning of a word with a vocalic sound. So if you look at your slide, you can have the word stri, and as you know, people either call it satri or istri. They can't pronounce sa, ta, ra together, but that's all that is allowed. If you look at the English words like strike, spray, splash, squash, screw, and street, etc., then you will notice very interestingly that English language and all Indian languages have a rule which is as follows: that if there is a structure like C1, C2, C3, V, that means there are 3 consonantal sounds before a vocalic sound, then C1 has to be a S, nothing else. It can't be anything else. C2 has to be a P, the or ka. It cannot be anything else. And C3 can only be ya, ra, la, va. That's all. Period. So imagine, so strictly organized and rule governed human languages at the level of sounds. As we said earlier, language is organized at the level of sounds, words, and sentences and discourse. But I'm going to show you very briefly how it is organized at the level of words and sentences. I've already shown you in sufficient detail about sounds. Look at the slide that is in front of you, where I have talked about where I show how you make a plural in English. Now, you have been told in school that add s, es, or ies. Nothing could be, I shouldn't say, nothing could be more wrong than this. Because if you say that s, es, and ies, that means that somebody who hasn't gone to school and doesn't know s, es, and ies cannot make plural. That means farmers who have not been educated in schools do not make plurals. They don't say cows, or they don't say buses. They do. But there is something else happening. The simple rule in English is x, xz, xz, x, xz. According to rules, it would become s in words like cats and caps. It would become z in words like dogs and bugs and beds. And it will become is in words like buses, brushes, catches, and so on. For example, the rule is that if a sound ends with ch and j or s, is would be added. S, sh, ch, or j. So bus and brush, buses and brushes. Okay, church and churches, judge and judges. It's rule governed. But generally, it's a z sound. You will hear a z sound. Okay, and in cats and cap, the word which ends with p, t, k, you will hear, a s sound. And that's again rule governed. Similarly, you can see that if you ask people how many plurals are there in Hindi, they will say one. And they will say ladka, ladke. So ladka is singular and ladke is bahuvachan. That's what they will tell you. But the moment you say ladke ne khana khaya, then what happens? Ladke is singular or plural? That ladke is one, not many. The fact is that, as is clear from your slide, that ladka has 6 different forms in Hindi. 2 in the nominative and 2 in the vocative. You say, O ladke idhar aao, and then you say, O ladko idhar aao when you say plural. So this is explained in great detail in the slide on words. As you will turn to the third slide, which is, or the next slide, I don't know if it's third or fourth, but as you turn to the next slide, you find a list of 14 sentences. I'm going to talk very briefly because it's explained in great detail in module 2. You have ladka khana khata hai, ladki khana khati hai, ladkiyan khana khati hain, or ladke khana khate hain. So the verb changes according to the subject. Fine. So that's the rule. But down below you find more sentences which say ladke ne khana khaya or ladki ne khana, ladki ne bhi khana khaya. So this is very interesting. Huh? Ladke ne khana khaya, ladki ne bhi khana khaya. Ladke ne gajar khai. देखो लड़के ने गाजर खाई, मेल खाई, लड़के खाई. अगर कोई वैसे कहेगा तो आप लोग हंसेंगे, लेकिन लड़के ने गाजर खाई बिकॉज गाजर इज फेमिनिन. लड़की ने भी गाजर खाई बिकॉज गाजर इज. बट इफ यू से लड़के ने पनीर खाया, पनीर इज मैस्कुलिन, सो खाया. लड़की ने भी पनीर खाया, लड़की खाया. अगर आप वैसे बोले लड़की रोटी खाया, then everybody will be, laughing. Even a small child will laugh at you because that small child has figured out the rules of subject-verb agreement, which are discussed in great detail in your module. I hope I have helped you in some way in understanding the second module, and if you have any problems, you will get my email from the UGC or I'll give it to you. you can always get back to me at agnirk@yahoo.com, AGNIIRK@yahoo.com. Thank you very much.